Hello and welcome to another episode of the SBK Betting Podcast. My name's Adam Bayliss. Jess Stafford is unfortunately off duty this week. Well, she's on duty. She's at York, but don't worry. Mr. Tom Collins is back from holiday, so we are still a full complement. And obviously, we always have Ross, the mailman Millar, ready to deliver once again for another week. TC, how was your holiday?
Yeah, it was very good, mate. Thank you. 3 days in the lovely city of Copenhagen. The weather was good, and I actually got away from racing for the first time in about 6 years. So, yeah, I can't really complain. It's nice to be back, though, and obviously we've got a fantastic weekend of action at York and over in the US as well. We've got the Travis Day at Saratoga, so it's a good time to be back in the UK and watching racing again.
The city of Copenhagen, not the city of Troy.
I like it.
Really bad, isn't it? Bad joke. Anyway, it's not even, I don't even know if you can call it a joke. Right. Anyway, onwards. Right, we're recording on Thursday morning, but it would sort of be remiss of us to not have a chat about York yesterday. I'm going to let's start with the Juvenile and City of Troy. TC, what did you make of it?
Yeah, this is a horse I've had a lot of belief in from a long time. Basically, second outing last year, I thought he was going to be a superstar. I was proven wrong in the Guineas, some may say in the comments, but subsequently proven right. I think this horse has really developed into his own, and he is the horse that we saw last year in the Superlative. No 2-year-old goes through a race like that, powers clear on the bridle, and then kicks up the Newmarket hill without being a superstar. And I'm just really glad that he's trained on this year. I didn't love him in the Juvenile going into the race just because York can throw up some strange results, and he was maybe forced to be close to the speed, which actually did happen. He ended up making the running. But he proved that he can handle the track, and he proved that he's just the best around. I thought the ride was fantastic, and him and Copenhagen are both fantastic horses. They drew clear, and it was a really good battle with the right result, in my opinion.
Ross, what did you make of it?
Really good. I mean, TC spoken about the horse, so I'll perhaps speak about the ride. I think it got its credit in parts, but you watch it back, I think it's a brilliant ride because I don't think he's very easy to ride. He looks really awkward. He grabs on one side of the bridle. He looks keen. Jess Stafford put a brilliant piece on, I still call it Twitter, X this morning, photos of the different bits he's worn throughout his career. They clearly have played around. A bit sits in the mouth. He's obviously got a sensitive mouth because they've had sort of rubber bits in his mouth. But he's also keen. They've clearly played around, so that tells you he's not straightforward. I thought it was a brilliant ride, made it look far more simple than it was, and I think he's a 1.5 mile horse that is just too classy over that trip. He found loads when a furlong out it looked like Copenhagen was coming to get him, and then he pulled away at the line. The other thing I'd just add in is I think Ghostwriter ran a really big race because he got very keen, got a little bit squeezed at the bend. So the bend and then the first furlong in the home straight, he really ran quite keen, probably at a point when Richard Kingscote would want to be filling his lungs with air. Thought he did well to stick on to finish where he did. And then Ambiente Friendly was my selection. I was really disappointed with him. Just said to TC before we started, it smacks of sort of defiance now, doesn't it? They're keeping Rab Havlin on. Callum Shepherd is the only person to win on him. And I just worry that they've tried to temper that, what they saw as over-enthusiastic nature. Maybe they've tempered it too much because he just looked very moderate yesterday throughout the race. He never looked like he was ever going to challenge. Maybe the slightly quicker ground went against him, but he's becoming very disappointing.
Yeah, I feel a bit. You make an interesting point about Ghostwriter. I feel a bit sorry for him. Clearly, an incredibly talented horse. Just, I suppose, in a bit of a tough class this year. Almost sort of getting into Nathaniel territory now, and I'm sure he'll sort of kick on and win a couple of races later this year and next year. But yeah, no, a fantastic race nonetheless. I'm keen to get both of your thoughts on Los Angeles. Does this win the Ledger or not? I mean, he's currently 5-1 Illinois and Jan Bruegel are 3-1 Kofabs. I thought Illinois was given a incredibly kind ride, shall we say, in second. But yeah, keen to get your thoughts.
Well, I'm on Illinois anti-post for the St. Ledger. So in answer to your question, do I think Los Angeles will win? No. I don't even think he's going to go for the race. I'm not too sure. They said that he probably wouldn't want to go up in trip. And they've got stamina concerns about him. So I don't know. I much prefer Illinois. I think he's the archetypal St. Ledger horse. And I'm sitting on a nice price. So hopefully we'll get Ryan Moore on board as well. Because I think if Ryan gets on, he's going to get a proper ride. Ryan's by far the best in the country, no doubt about it. And I think Illinois will win the St. Ledger, actually.
Love that. Ross, any thoughts on the ACOM?
I was surprised, Adam. I really thought Ruling Court would get it done. He just looked like he had so much speed in that debut at Sandown. Whereas the Lion in Winter was quite slowly away on his debut. He clearly has stepped forward a lot, and he's clearly taken them by surprise because Ryan Moore didn't ride him on debut. Wayne Lorden was on. For a See the Stars, he's clearly more precocious than they thought. I don't think there was any fluke about the win. He got a very good ride. I was quite interested to hear afterwards that Aidan O'Brien was talking about ruling a court and said that they felt he might be vulnerable because they feel that a breeze-up horse can drop off after their first run, which is something I'd never considered, but I'm not as smart as Aidan O'Brien, so that's worthy of consideration. I do think Wimbledon Hawkeye, who put up actually each way for Racing TV in the Juvenile watch, he's a horse to follow. My concern with him was that 7 furlongs around York would be too sharp. I thought he'd appreciate the flatter track. I don't think he liked Newmarket all that much. Follow him when he goes up in trip, even a little bit softer ground in a mile, he might pick, and there's plenty of that sort of race now heading into the autumn, and they tend to get diluted because there's so many of them. I'd be surprised if he doesn't pick up a group contest over a mile.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting race. I mean, it's been a while since a good one came out of the Acre. I mean, Phoenix of Spain, probably the best in recent memory, but I was really taken with the Lion in Winter, just like a really good looking horse picked up for a mere €375,000. Incredibly good looking horse. And I love the way he moved through the race and then strode away, ears were pricked. Just, I don't know, when you see it, you watch a horse sometimes, you see a race, you just think that smacks of a good one. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what he goes on and does next. Right, that's also York recap done. We'll now look ahead to Saturday, and we're going to start with the City of York Stakes at 3 o'clock on Saturday. 8 runners, audiences are 7-4 Fav, Kinross at 11-4, Lake Forest 7-2, and it's 7-1 Bar. So we've got last year's 1-2 meeting again here. Kinross got the better on the last occasion and looks to win the race for the 3rd time in a row. Can audience take revenge this year, Ross Millar?
I think he can. I think they feel he's progressed with age. I think they've perhaps found the key to him. Maybe the fact he's being trained as a racehorse in his own right as opposed to a lead horse might have something to do with it. It looked like a bit of a fluke, didn't it, in the Lock-Hinge, and he made all and they all slightly let him get away and never got back to him. I don't think he stayed the stiff mile in the Queen Anne, but I thought there was no fluke about it last time in the Lennox. He took a lead. That shows he's becoming more versatile, more adaptable. Sprinted away. Kinross didn't get a great ride by Ross Orion, but he was 5 lengths back and he was getting, an audience was giving him £5, I should say. Now off level weights, flat track again, 7 furlongs, quick enough ground. There is a bit of rain forecast for tonight and Friday. Not masses that you don't think it's going to change the ground dramatically. It will take the sting out of it. If it did come in bigger quantities than forecast, that would help Kinross, and it certainly wouldn't help audience. But I think, audience on official ratings got £8 in hand. I think it's hard to see Kinross reversing that Goodwood form. Personally, he was given a long break because they felt he'd had a few problems last year that they had to manage. He's 7 years of age now. I just wonder whether quick ground is not his liking as his joints are getting a little bit older. So I'd be against Kinross, and with audience. I would just give a word for Lake Forest, who stayed really well winning the Gimcrack at this track last year over 6 furlongs. He's really surprised me how effective he's been in 2 runs this year over 6 furlongs in the Hackwood and the Commonwealth. Second both times, finishing strongly. I had him marked down last year as a juvenile that he'd be much better when getting 7 furlongs. I think that will be the case. Probably won't have a bet. If I were to have a bet, I might play audience and Lake Forest to finish in that order and both get the better of Kinross.
I think that's not what Tom Collins wants to hear.
No, I have a very contrasting opinion on this. To be honest, before going away to Copenhagen, we were sharing the same opinions, myself and Ross. But it looks like we're not reading off the same hymn sheet this time. I don't really trust audience to produce an effort that is worthy of that 1-2-4 rating. Now, you go back through his career, only twice has he run a race that he's achieved an RPR better than 118. An RPR of 118 may win this on Saturday, but those 2 races that he's produced higher than 118 were 1-2-4 in the Lock-Hinge, where he just went away, no other horse got involved, and it looked like he may have been overestimated on that basis. And then last time at Goodwood, where again he got a good trip. Yes, he took a lead, but he was still way clear of the remainder. All he had to do was pass his lead horse in Art Power, who's back in this race on Saturday, and then power away on a track that does suit front runners. So I think he might have been flattered by both of those successes. And albeit he could easily win this race, again, he's going to take a lead. He's not going to get an easy time of things up front. And surely connections have learned that Kinross shouldn't be 5 or 6 lengths behind this time. They should ride him a lot closer to Audience. And therefore, I think he's got a fantastic chance of overhauling the Gosden horse. If Audience runs to 118, Kinross, I think, could easily run to 190 and 120. He's got that capabilities, and I think he'll beat Audience. So at the prices, I much prefer the horse that is proven at this venue and proven at this trip and level, and that is Kinross. If you go back through the last 2 years, obviously Kinross has won this race. Prior to that, he won at Goodwood both times, but he took a big step forward from the Goodwood run to York. £1 for the first year in 2022. £5 last year in 2023 was his improvement in RPRs. If he takes that £5 improvement here, bearing in mind he wasn't beaten too far by Audience at Goodwood, I think he'll reverse the form. And I do just want to say on the Lake Forest count, I don't disagree that he's got a great chance in here. Of course he does. He's the unexposed horse. He's a 3-year-old. 3-year-olds don't have a good recent record in the race, but prior to 2019, they won 4 or 5 in a row. So, a 3-year-old can easily win the City of York. I'm also surprised how he's developed this year, how he's managed to step forward and really progress on his 2-year-old form, because he wasn't the biggest of individuals. I don't know if he's going to continue taking that step forward, continue improving. I just think he might level off now. And even if he does, he'll be probably in the top 3 or 4. I just think he'll probably struggle to manage to fend off the likes of Kinross and Audience. At the prices, I like Kinross. At the track, I like Kinross. So, yeah, we've got contrasting opinions.
Contrasting opinions, indeed. Yeah, I don't know. I went around the houses with this. I really struggled. It's probably a no bet race for me. If Lake Forest had been 9-2, 5-1, I might have played it each way. But yeah, it was. Seeing it at 7-2 was slightly frustrating, but look, a good contest nonetheless on an awesome card of racing. Headlined, of course, by the Ebor at 3:35 p.m. with just 28 runners. Now we've got, that combination again, Aidan O'Brien, but James Doyle on board this time. Queenstown 9-2, Fav. Epic Poet 7-1, Magical Zoe 8-1, Fairbanks 8-1. Hippo de Loire 8-1, and it's 10-1 bar. Now, before I ask you both for your thoughts on this minefield of a handicap, I do need to let the viewers and listeners know that SBK is offering a 25% winnings boost on this race. So 25% additional winnings if you can find the winner here. Max stakes along with T's and C's do apply, but that's an offer well worth taking advantage of. Right, TC, I'm sure you've got all sorts of age, weight, stats for us here. So let's start with you. Where are you going in the Ebor?
Yeah, what a race this is. Not only have we got a max field, but we've also got 8-1 the field, and you could literally give a chance to 10, 15 of these. Just on a note, that offer, and I'm not just saying this because you employ me, SBK, but 25% winnings boost. Normally, we have it in a race where there's probably 3-1, 4-1 the favourite. And yes, you still make a good bonus by taking advantage of the offer. In this race, if you get the winner, you're going to get a huge whack on top of your return, because 25% winnings boost, the winner's likely to be a double figure price here, and it's well worth taking advantage of. That being said, looking at the market, obviously the traders have kind of reverted to type with Aidan O'Brien's horse being put on top in Queenstown. I don't see why he should be favourite, to be honest, apart from connections. 2 good runs behind Kyprios. Great. I mean, he didn't have anything else to beat. The efforts are fine. You go back to last year, you wouldn't say this is necessarily an Ebor winner. So I'd definitely be laying the favourite, place laying as well. That'd be my opinion on Queenstown. And James Doyle, he's a good rider. He's always been a good rider. This year, I think he's dropped off a touch in terms of actually his ability and effort he's putting in. And I'm not necessarily going and using that Windsor race from a couple of days ago as my reason for saying this, but I just see it time and time again in the final furlong. He seems to be dropping his hands or not really pushing out the likes of Ryan Moore and Ashim Murphy do, and that will be a concern for me, especially over this stamina sapping trip. You kind of want to see a jockey giving everything, and Doyle, more often than not, in my opinion, doesn't. So that would be a bit of a worry for me regarding the favourite. As I say, you can make a case for lots of these winning the race. I've come down on 2. The first is going to be Nakib, who hasn't really lived up to his reputation being a half-brother to Baid and Huckham. Everyone anticipated this horse to be a superstar. It took him a while to get that first win on the board, and he didn't really progress until late last year, where he was tried over stamina sapping trips. Now, this year, he hasn't gone forward. It's fair to say that. But his second place finish last time at Newbury, I thought was a much better effort than what we've seen so far. And it could just be that he's trending in the right direction now. William Haggis has a phenomenal record in general at York. He loves to target this meeting. And I think Nakib's probably been warmed up perfectly for this challenge. 10-1, in my opinion, doesn't represent huge value on the horse, but I think it's fair based on what we've seen so far. And given he's got that assured stamina, I wouldn't be surprised if Nakib ran very well here. He does have to prove that he handles York, though, because his only run at the track before was a little bit underwhelming. And the other horse that I like is a huge price, and that's Crystal Delight. This horse was targeted at the Ebor after winning a couple of races earlier this year, once at this venue, indeed. And it was a very good performance that day at York. Prior to that, he won at Epsom in a bit of an egg and spoon handicap. Then he suffered a bit of a setback, and obviously that has to be a concern because he's missed the middle part of the season. But now he comes back with this race in mind, quite clearly been targeted here. He's fresh, unlike the majority of this field. I love the booking of Tom Marquand. Jim Crowley was riding him prior to the injury, and Jim obviously has to ride Nakib here, given his Shadwell connection. So there are no real better substitute jockeys than Tom. And hopefully he can go well at around 25-1. We know that he handles the track. He's been targeted here. The trip should be fine. I think he's been overlooked due to connections.
Very, very interesting thoughts. Ross, agree, disagree? Where are your darts going?
Yeah, I couldn't possibly disagree with the selections made. I'm not on the same horses. I think we have to mention Hip Hop de Loire for Willie Mullins, just by virtue of the fact it's Willie Mullins and a horse we know very little about. But you simply can't tip this horse because we know nothing about it. So if you see anyone tipping him that isn't and I would argue, a German race expert, they're guessing. Now, it's an educated guess because it's Willie Mullins. He gets horses fitter. And we've seen that time and time again. But you can have no real opinion on whether this horse is well handicapped or not unless you understand the German form. So he could well bolt up, but you can't put him up as a selection. I thought Epic Poet was really interesting for David O'Mara. Came from a long way back to finish second in the Duke of Edinburgh at Royal Ascot. And that, we know, was hard to do on the round track all week. It paid to be up with the pace. He had Ziggy a neck behind him. Ziggy is now £5 worse off. And then I thought it was a really big run last time out in the John Smith Cup at this track, over 1.2 miles, so dropping back in trip, again ridden from a long way back, which is how he tends to be ridden, found trouble in running and was only really getting going at the line, finished third. It is a concern that he's got to navigate traffic, but a 1.6 mile round here in a strongly run handicap, you'd hope that it starts to open up and there's spaces to run to up the home straight. So I do think he's very well handicapped still. So Epic Poet was first on my list. And then another horse who I've got form with is My Mate Mozzie. I tipped him for the Copper Horse handicap at Royal Ascot. He got a moderate ride, I felt, really. And just by how these races pan out, Gary Carroll had quite a nice position, thought he saw a gap on the rail to save a bit of ground and get the rail to run up. And as he went into that gap, it closed in front of him, had to extricate himself. Took a while to find his stride, but I really felt in the last 50 yards he was the one horse that was really hitting the line hard at Royal Ascot. Of course, Bellocchio, we know they think a lot of. He's not come here because of the quick ground. He clearly remains in good form. He was placed in the Galway hurdle off a mark of 144 earlier, last month as it was. He's off 98 here. I just still can't shake the fact that off 144 over National Hunt rules, 98 here. I think he's a well-handicapped horse. Again, I think the long home straight will suit him. So My Mate Mozzie, I'm going to go with him again.
Yeah, very shrewd operation, the Gavin Cromwell yard. So I'll just recap there. TC's gone for Nakib and Crystal Delight, while Ross is siding with Epic Poets and My Mate Mozzie. For what it's worth, I've got a sole dart for you, and that'll be Relentless Voyage up at the top of the weight. So a bit of a question mark over a quick round for this horse, but as Ross said, there might be a bit of rain about Friday, Saturday. I was really impressed with that run at Goodwood last time behind Al-Azi. I know it was a bit of a muddling contest, but still to get within a length or two of that horse is pretty decent form. Still fairly lightly raced. It's got form with some really sort of good middle to long distance horses this season. Look, he hasn't got within a length of Kyprios like Queenstown, but that's baked into the price. And I thought that 20-1 was very, very fair. With I'm sure there'll be extra places on offer there as well. So that's Relentless Voyager for Andrew Balding for me. Right, Naps and next best time. I'm going to start with Ross because I gather that both of yours come from York.
Yeah, I ignored Cartmile, which might actually be off. I think they're getting plenty of rain. The Nap comes in the 225, which is the Melrose handicap. William Haggis trained, Dramatic Star. We know that William Haggis loves this Ebor meeting. He likes the Melrose. He's won it twice in the last 5 years. Dramatic Star was well backed for handicap debut at Haydock on just his fourth run. He progressed really nice with 3 runs in novices and maidens, finished second at Nottingham on his second start. The horse in third has run very well off a mark of 86. Dramatic Star's only off 87 here. He then won at Hamilton and won absolutely pulling a cart. That was over a mile 3. He's out Dramatic Queen, who won a Group 3 at this track for William Haggis over this trip. He's by Sea the Stars. Everything about him suggests that he will be a better horse next year, but he's definitely going to be better than 87, and stepping up in trip is going to suit this horse really well. I think this has been a race he's been targeted at. He slipped up on the bend at Haydock, stays on that mark. He was really well looked after once he'd slipped. He wasn't knocked around, which I really like to see. Once their chance is gone, leave them be, particularly when they're young. I think he could be miles better than this mark. So Dramatic Star is the nap in the 225. And then the next best comes in the first race on Saturday, the Strensel Stakes 150. And it's a horse I really like, Task Force. He's perhaps not put it together quite yet this year. Ross Ryan is clearly a very talented rider, but I don't think he had a great Glorious Goodwood. I think, as we said, he was pretty poor on Kinross. He won on a juvenile nursery called Mr. Chaplin, and he won in spite of the ride, not because of the ride, because he found plenty of trouble then. And I just felt on Task Force last time out in the Bonham's Thoroughbred Stakes, he went down the rail, had a wall of horses in front of him. The winner got a really good ride from Kieran Schumacher, lead artist, kicked off the front. The runner-up, King's Gamble, came wide down the outside, and when you watch it back, you could almost see Ross Ryan looking across. Danny Tudhope was kicking at exactly the time Ross wanted to be kicking, and he couldn't because there was a wall of horses in front. He had to weave to get some room. Only really got him organised because you're then trying to quicken at the most downhill part of the track. It doesn't really suit Task Force, I don't think. But just inside the final 50 yards, he looked organised and he closed really well. He's by Frankel. He's got a half sibling who's won over a mile and 4, who was by Galileo. I think this step up in trip will suit him well. He's got a bit to find on official ratings, but I think this flat track will suit, long home straight will suit. The extra furlong will definitely suit. He'll probably stay a bit further yet. So Task Force for Rafe Beckett and Ross Ryan is the next best in the 150.
Very interesting. Yeah, so 2 more from York there for you. Dramatic Star in the 225 and the Task Force in the opener there for Ross. I'm going to come back with some more York selections, but first we're going to go to TC, who I think's got a couple from Newmarket for us.
Yeah, focusing on Newmarket this week for the 2 best bets. My nap is going to be a horse called Subsequent, who runs in the 430. It's a staying handicap, and it looks between 2 runners, to be fair. It's a small field, so I don't really think we're going to get a huge amount of value in the price here on Subsequent, but anything around 3-1 would be fair. The 2 that I think it's between are the aforementioned Subsequent and the David Simcock trained A Sail, who might actually go off favourite due to the emphaticness of his victory last time up. But I just think there's a lot more to come from Subsequent. And A Sail's unproven on turf, only had the 1 outing. And, if you're betting that horse's favourite, you're taking a big jump that this horse will love turf, and it's just not proven. Subsequent gets a 3-year-old allowance, which is a huge positive, as we already know. He's shaped like a horse to keep on the right side of throughout the whole summer. He's only had 5 outings, but he seems to be progressing for each and every one of them in a typical Andrew Balding stayer kind of fashion. I really liked his finishing effort at Haydock back in June, where he hit the line powerfully. He broke his maiden that day. He backed it up by winning in fine style at Salisbury. Again, the final furlong was the best part of his race then. And then last time up, he was sent to Glorious Goodwood. It was a bit of an ambitious tilt anyway. I thought he ran okay, but he lost all chance at the start. He was slowly away. He kind of hopped in the first step as well, which meant that he was right on the back foot. Had to race in last. Glorious Goodwood races this year were generally focused on front runners or prominently raced horses. It was no benefit whatsoever to be right out the back. So that also played against him. And I just think you could put a line through that effort. If you did, Subsequent should surely be favourite and a relatively short price favourite at that in the 430. So hopefully he can win for Andrew Balding and the Hayes, Victory and Jim. And my next best is also going to come at Newmarket, this time in the 355, the race prior to the nap, and that's a horse called Quinault. Now, this is a listed event, the Hopeful Stakes, and it features lots of horses with plenty of chances. So I'm not super confident here. You're probably going to get a good price on Quinault as well, given most of his forms come in handicap company. But last time up at Chester, he proves that he can compete at listed level. He won decisively off the front end. And yes, he did get a good trip that day, but I thought he still shaped like the best horse and he won as such. He comes into this race as a horse who probably wants a short 7 furlongs. By that, I mean an easy 7 furlongs, not a stiff 6. But I think this track will really suit Quinault. He'll go straight to the lead. There doesn't seem to be any other proper front runner in the race. And Marco Gianni rode him really nicely at Chester, and he stays on board, which I think is a positive here. Hopefully he can fend off the likes of Funny Story. There are a couple of others in there. Sakir, who's a very interesting runner, but he's yet to do it this year. And hopefully justify what I think will be a pretty fair price in the 355 at Newmarket.
Yeah, really interesting race, that Hopeful Stakes. The TC's bumping for Quinault. Said he's not super confident. You might say he's hopeful.
That's better than your City of Troy gag earlier.
Thanks very much. Right, we're going back to York now. I might have found a sneaky one for you in the 10 past 4. Really interesting race, actually. Loads of handicappers that we know, like loads about. You know, they've danced the biggest dances this season, whether it's Ascot, Ripon, Goodwood. You know, you've got Billy Joe in there. You've got Dare to Hope, who won last weekend. Apollo won, who very, very narrowly struggled to get the job done for TC earlier in the season. But there's one here for Clive Cox, Harry 3 in stall 11 with Danny Tudhope on board. It was really, really interesting. Disappointed so far this year. But it's now back to the same mark as when he won here at York in 2022. He's obviously had a load of issues. I mean, 600 odd days off, I think, before this season. And Clive Cox said actually earlier in the year when he went off 9-1 Ascot when Ryan Moore was on board in the Wokingham that he was just unsuited by quick ground. So, you know, if that's right, we're sort of hoping for a bit of rain here, but you should cite that like he won on Good to Firm when beating River Pride back in May 22. Again, he won on good ground when he won here at York. So perhaps a slightly weak excuse, and that mark of 97 really could underestimate a horse who's just got loads of ability. And if he's anywhere near back to his best, he could kind of just be flying under the radar here in this 10 past 4 at York, and he's 16-1. So I think he's really, really, really interesting in what is a pretty competitive handicap. And then a next best, if you can call it that, in the 445. Yes, I am putting some faith and money in Ed Walker Runner, but I spoke about him last week. 2-year-old Ardennes, who I just think is a really, really interesting animal. This is a competitive race, step up in class in the Julia Graves Rosa Stakes, and he's dropping back to 5 furlongs. But I don't think there are many in here that can live with him, actually. There's the likes of Tropical Storm, who's obviously a good horse, and the Joe Lyons run is quite interesting as well, Magnum Force. But yeah, we'll stick with Ardennes based on what we've seen so far, and hope that there's a clean sweep of winners across the Naps and next best this week. Any other thoughts for York or elsewhere, guys, over the weekend? TC, anything from America for us?
Yeah, it would. No selection. I'm not going to give a selection just yet because I haven't really had a proper look. But the Travers Stakes on Saturday is the best race of the day. I know the Ebor's probably the best punting race, but the Travers is the best in terms of talent. 4 top horses, Fierceness in there, Dornock, Fierceness winning the Jim Dandy, Dornock, the Belmont Stakes winner. You've also got Sierra Leone, who's been the horse that many people are saying the cliff horse this year, often the bridesmaid, never the bride, and Torpedo Anna, who's a filly facing the boys, and she's bidding to become the first filly to win the Travers since 1915, 109 years ago, when Lady Rother was awarded the race via a disqualification of the first past the post. It would be a huge feat if she was to do it, and she's actually 3-1 on the morning line, second favourite. So it's not. There is a big chance that she is going to win this race, but she's going to have to go to the front from the inside. It's going to be a great race. I think it's around 10:30 on Saturday night, so definitely make sure you watch that.
Some interesting thoughts there from TC for the US. Are you on Sky, TC? Can we see you there?
I am indeed, yeah, for all of Windsor. Also haven't looked at the Windsor card yet. And also stateside action.
We have to tune in to get TC's thoughts there. Right, one final point from me. Don't forget, if you haven't joined SBK yet, you can get £30 in free bets when you place your first £10 bet. That's for new users. T's and C's do apply, over 18s only. Right, thank you both. There's been some great racing so far. We've only had one day of York this week, so fingers crossed for plenty of more today and Friday. Thank you both very much for your selections. Fingers crossed for lots of winners, and best of luck.